Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 27, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Swami. Namo Kinchana Vittaya Nivritta Guna Vrittaye Atma Ramaya Shantaya Kaivalya Pataye Namaha. Now continuing our theme of simple living and high thinking, in which I've discussed the elusive simplicity of attitude that is required to choose to live simply in the modern age, and how modern life, for all its promises of happiness, is simply misery at every moment. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada gives an example of an anartha. Artha means meaning. Anartha means meaningless. So we are enjoined to advance on the path of pure love of Krishna through the stage of anartha nivriti, or negating that which is meaningless. That word nivriti comes in slightly different form in this verse which we just read, nivritta guna vittaye, who is beyond the, has no connection with the modes of material nature. Srila Prabhupada gives as an example of an anartha, lipstick, which is a very small and insignificant thing. Of this size, isn't it? You get one little. I've never used it actually. But it's about that size. A little. What do you call it? A little stick. Stick. It's a stick of lipstick. Maybe I have used it in some drama, but I don't remember. It's not a major part of modern civilization, but it's probably, if you take the world production of lipstick, it probably runs into a few $1 million a year. Now, to make that lipstick, you have to assemble the ingredients. And probably most of them use animal fats, including cow fat. Almost certainly. There is a company in England, which it's called the Body Shop, which they made their business by making cosmetics and soaps vegetarian, suitable for vegetarians, without animal products. I see these Matajis in Russia. They may be worshipping the deity with cow's fat on their toenails. Nail polish is another anartha. So you have to assemble all the ingredients, which I don't know exactly what's in lipstick, but all the different ingredients they have to bring. They must manufacture with chemicals, all the different colors. Someone may go to school and college and then university and get a PhD and then become qualified to make research into new kinds of lipstick. They make such a complex education and use it for things like manufacturing new kinds of lipstick. And they have to be very careful that it doesn't damage the skin, because in America, if you put lipstick on and it damages the skin, you can sue the company for how much? Millions of dollars?
It's $10 million.
$10 million. If you get a little blister from using that lipstick, you could sue the company for $10 million, I'm told by Radhika Gopinath, who is a citizen of the United States of America. Don't kill him. He's not a CIA. So they have to test all their products on various animals. I don't know how they test lipstick on animals, maybe on chimpanzees. So you may see a chimpanzee with lipstick and nail polish, and it might look more pretty than the women who try to make themselves pretty by using it. You can see a woman dressed up with so much makeup and say to her, "Oh, you look just like that beautiful chimpanzee." There's an example given in Shastra. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastra Japastapaha Apranasya Dehasya Mandanam Lokaranjanam. That without devotional service to Krishna, all forms of religious activities are like a decoration on a dead body. But anyway, the body is dead. It has no inherent life. So devotees don't endeavor to, they don't make great efforts to try to make the body look beautiful. It is said that one object, the body of a woman, is perceived differently by a lusty man, a sadhu, and a dog. This is, I believe, from Chanakya. A lusty man will see the body of a woman. Anyway, you don't need that explaining. Everyone can understand how he sees the body of a woman as something very desirable. A sadhu sees just as attractive as a log of wood. In other words, doesn't become attractive. And a dog thinks may be very tasty. People, they like it when their pet dog licks them. Remember, the dog is a carnivore. Anyway, this just to give one example of how lipstick is an anartha, unwanted, meaningless thing that unwanted, meaningless thing. And the whole of modern society is simply increasing more and more anarthas. Simple living is supposed to rid us from the gross anarthas of materialistic society. Of course, simply going to the village doesn't mean that we'll automatically become free of the anarthas, the meaningless things within our minds. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, madness, these are all anarthas within the mind. But going to a place where there's no fuel for the fire of lust and greed helps that the fire will not blaze, it will go down in intensity. I surmise that many devotees are afraid to live simply because they're afraid of losing their anarthas. We become so attached to anarthas that we take them to be artha, to be the very meaning of our lives. Probably in most people's lives they could cut out 90% of the things that they use because they don't need them. It's simple, again, using this figure of 90% again, simple living means that 90% of what we use is produced locally. In most climates of the world, food, clothing, and shelter can all be produced locally. And for most people previously, there was no question of getting their materials for food, clothing, and shelter anywhere else than locally. Not that they're importing food from the other side of the world. Modern society has very efficiently made arrangements for billions of animals to be slaughtered by refrigeration and advanced ships with engines which make them go fast, and modern means of killing animals. So by this method, when I was a child, it was in England, New Zealand lamb was very cheap. By lamb we mean here, that means the meat of the lamb. you refer to, when you say lamb, that usually, in English, that usually refers to the meat. They're the young of sheep.
Yeah.
So previously, people in England didn't used to eat meat very much because there was no mass industry to produce meat. So people would eat it on some festival day or something like this. A rich man might eat meat daily. But with the advent of mass transportation, agribusiness, refrigeration, Western man came to eat meat 3 times a day. And this is considered progress of society. People can eat better. Now they can eat meat 3 times a day. Srila Prabhupada noted, he saw on the plane, people, they only eat a little bit of meat with each meal. But Srila Prabhupada said, for everyone to eat a little bit of meat, millions of animals have to be killed. So simple living means to live just on what we produce locally. And within Vedic culture, or at the edges of Vedic society, there are also people who keep pigs and chickens for eating, but they're not considered very high-class people. Recently in India, some states have outlawed the eating of beef. But they should not have done that. They should have outlawed cow killing and allowed eating of beef. Well, you may think, well, how is that possible? Well, the traditional system was that when the cow naturally dies, then a certain class of people, they can take the body and they can eat the meat. Obviously, that's not for very high-class people, but it caters for the inevitability of certain people having certain low propensities. So there's simple living has and high thinking and Vedic culture. There's room for the meat eaters also, although we don't encourage it. So 90% of what we need is produced locally, and there may be some things that we import, but also that usually not from very far away. For instance, for decorate, we don't say not to decorate the body. We're not great fans of lipstick and nail polish. But maybe decorated by gold and silver ornaments and jewels. And generally that won't be produced locally. As Srila Prabhupada also pointed out, that in Vedic culture, everyone, men and women, they wear some jewelry. There should be some, they may not be very rich, but there should be some item of gold on their body, either in the nose or the ear or some ring or somewhere. Women used to have golden nose rings, and there'd be a gold connection going up to their ear. In marriages, some function that way. I don't think you see that anymore?
Only in marriages.
In marriages they use it. But nowadays girls, they like to think they're very beautiful by wearing t-shirts and shorts. And Vedic culture means real culture. Simple in many ways and very sophisticated in other ways. And certainly very, very different to the modern, materialistic, gross culture. How many people are ready for this? We think that we have to send our children to a school that teaches them how to earn a living. We think that we have to spend so much money on modern medicines. Actually, in traditional culture, then seeing a doctor should be rare. The mother and the grandmother, they know all the local herbs to use for medicines. Just now I mentioned to Radhika Gopinath Prabhu that when one has a cold, one shouldn't take sweets, which was common knowledge maybe a generation ago. Everyone in India knew it, even the Muslims. It's Ayurveda. But modern life means modern education, and you lose all the traditional knowledge. All over the world, definitely in Russia there must have been so many local cures for different things. Of course, the panacea for all miseries, the traditional one in Russia, is vodka. They used to do that. They used to, when the baby's crying over and over at night, they give some vodka to put it to sleep. Anyone used to do that? No.
Some cities.
In Ireland they used to do that with whiskey. That's not very recommended. Child's an alcoholic at the age of 4. Anyway, there's some good, more sattvic medicines also. But what we're looking at is a completely different outlook on life, a completely different way of living life. Practicing Krishna consciousness in the modern culture, it's a hybrid way of life. We're trying to live with the culture of the demons and practice the way of life or the spirituality of the devas, the demigods. You can read in the Kunti Devi, the chapter 4, that book of Srila Prabhupada taken from his lectures. He gives such an analysis of modern life, citing Rishabhadev, who spoke so many thousands and thousands of years ago. The whole idea of economic development, expanding more and more by making factories, it's all nonsense. And it leads to a big karma, sinful activity. Actually, if we study Shastra with always keeping in mind that this Shastra is traditionally recited within Varnashram society. That's a half sentence, but I'll stop there for now. And trying to understand the context, then we'll see that Varnashram is everywhere in Shastra. The whole Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's doubt, what is his duty, what is his dharma as a kshatriya in this situation, it's all based on Varnashram. If we study Srila Prabhupada's letters, his conversations, his writings, his lectures, we'll find again and again and again, either directly or subtly, he's directing, live simply, diminish our activities for material so-called progress. And it's because of reading and hearing Srila Prabhupada's instructions that some of you have taken this seriously and gone to the land and made some pilot projects for simple living and high thinking. It's not some secondary thought in Srila Prabhupada's teachings. It's central to his mission of saving the world. Saving the world doesn't just mean that we get everyone to chant Hare Krishna, but we have to save them from the hellish life that is modern civilization. In one purport, Srila Prabhupada said factory means hell. In another one, he says that factories, they're dungeons for demons. Dungeon means a dark prison. It's a prison, but it's worse than a prison. It's really horrible. More horrible than a regular prison. Many years ago, actually it was my first temple president, Bhajahari Prabhu in England, he told me that something he'd told Srila Prabhupada. Like several of the prominent devotees in England at that time, he was from South Wales. You know what Wales is? Everyone know?
Wales?
You might not know. It's like some little bush Kurdistan or something like that.
So is it in Great Britain, yeah?
Yes, part of Great Britain. It's a small country which is part of, you say the United Kingdom because there's England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Channel Islands, and so on. Some little insignificant country. So, I mean, everywhere's insignificant, but some are more insignificant than others. So, he told Srila Prabhupada that, it's a highly industrialized area, which was at the time, one of the prominent industries was steel production. So Vajahai Prabhu told me that he had told Srila Prabhupada how he used to work in the steel mill, where it was dark and hot with this very intense working conditions. It was dark and hot with lots of smoke, and sounds like a description of hell. And he said to Srila Prabhupada that I always felt terrible working there, but all the other people seemed to think that it was quite okay. And Prabhupada said, that is because you were a Brahmin in your last life. What did that Brahmin do to end up in a factory in South Wales? Well, he must have been sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go to that situation, to spread the holy name in the Western world. So anyway, devotees, they naturally develop a higher consciousness. Just like vegetarians, even the thought of eating meat is something repulsive to them. Prabhupada, he used to see all kinds of things on the plane, and he used to comment about that. He commented on these sausages. Yeah, you have sausages in Russia also, obviously, because there's a sosiska, there's a word for it. It's not just something. So the British, they're also gross, and the Russians are also gross. So Prabhupada, he must have asked what that is, because in Bengali Vaishnava culture there are no sausages. He wasn't familiar with it. So what it is, all the pieces of meat that are so disgusting that even the meat eaters won't eat it, they grind it up so they can't understand what it is and put it in a pig's intestine, and that's called a sausage. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada just became amazed at how gross people can be. How can you eat pig's intestines?
Как можно вообще эти свиные кишки есть?
It's very difficult to understand how you can eat any part of a pig, but the intestine, the part where the stool goes through. So anyway, just as vegetarians, they become repulsed by even the thought of eating meat, so someone who develops higher thinking, then he becomes disenchanted with, or takes no pleasure in those things which people of low consciousness take pleasure in. The people who are like swans, they don't take pleasure in the pilgrimage place for crows. So this whole idea of living in a city and having motorbikes and rock music and lipstick. When you hear people, they have their motorbike, they rev it up. They go, it's and it gives them some buzz. They feel their mind is also going.
То есть у людей, у которых есть байки, мотоциклы, им нравится газку поддать. Так, и у них мозг тоже...
That's what modern civilization is, just increasing the mode of passion. And they think, great, wonderful. And the devotee just looks at them and thinks, these people are crazy. Just like you see the sausage eater. What are they doing with their human form of life? Preparing themselves to become a worm in the intestine of a pig. And if you're going to become a worm in stool, at least you could be in a Brahmin stool. But a worm in a pig stool. The worm in the Brahmin stool is looking down at the worm in the pig stool and saying, see, I'm superior to you. But people who they have actual high thinking, they look at all this and what are these people doing? Why are they living like this? Srila Prabhupada definitely, we can see again and again and again, he talks about how the whole modern civilization is one big anartha. And of course, it's not Srila Prabhupada's private thoughts, or it's not just his personal opinion. If we read the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, then we can see how the modern civilization, it's developed exactly according to the demoniac tendencies. And it's all based on the idea, produce more and more and more goods. And if you can invent something new that no one ever thought of, then that's a great achievement. Krishna makes the economic basis of society very simple. Krishi Go Raksha Vanija, which means agriculture, cow protection, and trade. Agriculture and cow protection go hand in hand. Do you have do you have different words for that in Russian? Means agriculture and cow protection. Because in English, often they're considered. It's all part of the same thing. They're so intimately related. Krishi literally means plowing. That is done by the bull. And trade means if there's excess products, agricultural products, they may be traded. Or there may be trade in jewels, or fine clothing, silk, something like this. But all things which people can use, not just unnecessary things. They all have practical use. And Go-Raksha, as Srila Prabhupada often noted, he several times, you'll see Prabhupada said, they don't talk about dog-raksha, protecting dogs or protecting pigs. Specifically, cows are to be protected. One who has many cows is considered to be very wealthy, a Vaishya with many cows. Not buffaloes or goats or tractors. Even one gentleman in Bangladesh, he told me that in his childhood, that would have been, his childhood must have been early, mid-20th century. Before that. It would have been before that, when the British were still ruling. They said that in the villages in Bangladesh, there's no Bangladesh at that time, but no one ever sold milk. Everyone had enough milk. If you needed extra for some festival, you could just ask someone to give you. That's all. Practically when I was in Bangladesh, you hardly saw tractors or buffaloes, cows and bulls for plowing the land. Krishna had literally millions, Nanda Maharaj, not Krishna, Nanda Maharaj had literally millions of cows. So Vedic culture means living with many cows. It's a completely different approach to life. Instead of having smartphones and TVs and internet and 20 pairs of shoes, with cows. So we have to have some faith in the words of Krishna. That what Krishna spoke in Bhagavad Gita is not something meant for some time in the past. It's meant for all times, the present and the future also. And we can't do it all at once. It'll take time to develop such society. It took hundreds of years for the traditional societies all over the world to be destroyed. And the effects of industrialization are everywhere. But it is part of a major part of Srila Prabhupada's mandate to establish these varnashram communities. the material focus of society must be there as along with the spiritual focus. But according to Krishna, the material focus should be on producing food, not machines or weapons or lipstick. Okay, there are some thoughts on these topics. I've spoken on these topics many times, as Srila Prabhupada wanted us to take up this Varnashram mission. And some devotees are hearing, they're listening to this, and taking steps toward simplifying their life so that they can be more in harmony with nature and more in harmony with Krishna. So again, we don't condemn those who, for whatever reasons, they don't take up this way of life. But we congratulate those who are boldly going ahead with this, what we can call a Varnashram experiment. And in this year of ISKCON's 50th anniversary, I would say the best offering we can make to Srila Prabhupada is to make some very serious steps as a movement toward establishing Varnashram as Srila Prabhupada mandated. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'll finish there, and we can have questions this afternoon. Written questions to yourself, I presume. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Слава Шри Прабхупаде.